check. This is an audio test. Check, check, check. This is an audio test.
If everyone can take your seats, we will be beginning soon.
Good morning, everybody. How are you all doing today? Good? You feeling good? We have an amazing view of the Bay here and an amazing group of people. All of you we know that you're entrepreneurs, and some of you work for amazing organizations, nonprofits, tech, really across all industries. And really the goal of this event is to help share your story and find a unique way of sharing your story with the world and through things like PR. And a little bit about myself. My name is Zynara. And by day, I'm a video producer at Google, as well as a public speaking coach. But by night, I'm an entrepreneur and the co-founder of Compassion Group, a company really founded on the idea of bringing compassion to the world and really thinking about it from the workplace. So, with that said, a little bit more about Jake, my co-organizer, who I'd love to bring up on the stage. He's going to share a little bit more about himself, but when I first met Jake, one of our earlier phone calls, I remember you telling me how much it means to support women and entrepreneurs in this space and about sharing their voices. For me and all the work that I do, it's really important to help people find their voices and share that with the world. And that has really been the crux of this whole event and why we're all here today. Dick.
Like Zynara said, this event came about, what was it, 6 weeks ago?
6 weeks ago.
So we didn't know each other like 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. So this all came together rather quickly, and it just shows I mean, who says that men and women can't be teammates and work together? I mean, look at this. This is phenomenal. Just great work by Zynara, by the Women Supporting Women Network. I guess a little bit about myself. I grew up in northern Idaho on a several thousand acre wheat farm. Grew up, so my family pioneered the area. I was fourth generation up there. I went to school in Ohio, and then I worked on Capitol Hill for a while. Did a lot of political work. And that's really where because I grew up in a small town. I wasn't exposed to a lot of the stuff that we hear about going on today. It was in politics that I first got my wake-up call, like, something needs to happen, something needs to change. So that's where it all started. My mother was a very strong woman. She had all those kids, and then she was a lobbyist. She had a full-time career. She was one of the most respected lobbyists in the state. So all of that kind of blended together into when I met C. Simone, who's one of the founder of WSW, Women Supporting Women Network. I was like, all this stuff was breaking loose. I'm like, the dam is breaking. Let's do something that doesn't necessarily add to the negativity that we're hearing today. Let's do something that adds positivity. So let's talk about women's stories. Let's help women learn how to leverage all of the channels, traditional media and otherwise, to better tell their stories, because the most effective way to engage people, to inspire future generations and current generations is to tell a story. We all grow up, mom, dad, read me a story. So that is the power of PR, the power of language, the power of nuance. I would also like to mention that one of the reasons this event is happening today is because of Bava Communications, also founded by just a rock star, Liz over here. She'll be on our second panel, our media panel. They came in, they're just on fire for this mission. They focus mostly on B2B PR communications, but just a wealth of information, wealth of knowledge. And they've been in business in the Bay Area for almost a decade. And if anybody's in the PR business, they know that that is quite an achievement. So huge round of applause for Bava for putting this. I would also like to recognize Ghost Hand Productions, who is managing the live stream today. So everybody out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Ghost Hand Productions. I met their founder at a previous event last week, and I was just really inspired by the quality of work they do. So we got to talking about the mission of what this event is, and they came in and have just been a huge help. So if you want look at their videos everywhere, but if you want any high quality video, etc., Ghost Hand Production in the Bay Area is top notch. Yes.
How do we obtain the live stream?
The live stream is on.
We can, one of our volunteers can send out actually an email to this group here, and we'll send out the live stream link to you all.
The difficulty of live stream is you don't get the URL until you out. So that's going out to all of you right now. So without further ado, I'd like to go back to Zynara.
Yes, with a few more thank yous to DocuSign. This amazing venue that you are at, again, with a wonderful view here, we've been graciously hosted by DocuSign. They really believe in our mission. Boris here has been one of our leads here on organizing this event. So thank you. And when I chatted with Boris, he strongly believed in our mission about helping female entrepreneurs, female founders, women in business. And this was a perfect partnership. So thank you so much, Boris. And in fact, there's at the end, if you want, there's a free trial that DocuSign is offering for 1 year. It's valued at about a $500 value, but there's a free trial for each of you to use and try if you'd like. So towards the end, head to the front desk and we'll give you one of these things.
First come, first serve.
Yes. Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, with that said, we're going to get started with our first panel event. Today, you're going to meet really inspiring individuals, female founders, and PR experts in media. Each person has an amazing story with impact, and really we want to hear from them, hear from their experiences, for you to each ask questions. And just a raise of hands, too. How many of you are entrepreneurs in the room, thinking about starting your own business or have your own business? Nice. About half the room here. And how many of you work for an organization? Okay, it's about a split room. I'm sure there's an entrepreneurial spirit in each of you in all of the work that you do. And really the goal is to help share each of your voices, whether it's from a company perspective, an entrepreneur perspective. It's really to help share your voice and make it really unique for others to hear. So with that said, I'd love our first panel to come up. I'll introduce each of you, and we will get started. I'd like to call to the stage Tenzin, Mabel, Tosh, Sophia, Sia, Simone, and Mahak. Come on down. You come and sit in any order. I'm going to read off over here. So Sia, Simone here. If you guys wouldn't mind doing a little wave as I go down the row. I'll do a brief bio on each of you, and then afterwards I'm going to ask you to just tell a little bit more about your story. Take about 2 minutes. Tell us about your story and really the reason why you got started with your business. This is a group here of female founders, incredible entrepreneurs. They are all rock stars, and I'm so thrilled and honored to be sitting here with you and sharing your stories with everyone here. So I'm going to go down the line, think about your little 2-minute story and why you got started in your business, and then we'll kick it off from there. So Sia Simone here is the founder and CEO of Film Hero, as well as the founder of the professional community, Women Supporting Women. Her mission is to help filmmakers spark dialogue and call to action for social impact through film. Welcome, Simone. Next, we have Mabel here, who is the co-founder of Albert's List. Albert's List is a Facebook community with over 32,000 members, and it's a new way to find meaningful work. So she has an extensive background in growth marketing, digital marketing, and ad tech. And with Albert's List, she provides educational resources for hiring managers, job seekers, entrepreneurs, and recruiters to help others really connect with each other. Welcome, Mabel. Tosh Jeffries. She is a digital and social media strategist. She's also a best-selling author, TV show producer, writer, host, and mentor to both 500 startups and runway incubators in the Bay Area. Welcome, Tosh. Miss Sophia Ng is a small business and startup growth advisor. She uses her psychology background to create psychologically powerful growth hacking strategies for high-tech startups and enterprise software companies. Welcome, Sophia. Okay, and then we have Mahak. And Mahak Vora is the founder and CEO of the growth hacking agency, Jamocha. Did I pronounce that right? Okay, Jamocha Media. After 2 years in computer science at Purdue University, Mahak decided to drop out and take her agency full-time. At the age of 22, she is now running for the mayor of San Francisco. Impressive. Yes, we got some, yes. Here. And lastly, on the end there, we have Tenzin Seldon, who was recently named Forbes 30 Under 30 for this year as a social entrepreneur. She is a mentee of the Dalai Lama, a UN international consultant, and the founder at Kinstep, an organization that finds steady jobs for immigrants. Welcome, Tenzin. We've got a pretty rock star panel over here, and I'd love to open this up for you, to each of you, to start to tell your stories and about why you got started with your business. Who wants to start first? Should we start at the end? How about Tenzin, we start off with you?
Thank you again for having me. Can you hear me?
Actually, the mic's nice.
Is this better?
There we go.
Hi everyone, and good morning. I'm so happy to be here. I think my business would not be possible without my story, and that's that I was born and raised in a Tibetan refugee camp in Dharamsala, and I lived there for most of my life. And in the 1990s, my mother won the U.S. visa lottery to come here, and it's really by chance that I'm probably even sitting on the podium here today. As a result of the lottery, I was able to immigrate to America, and I remember one of the most difficult times I had, including my family members, was finding a job, and that too finding a steady job. A lot of immigrants and refugees, despite the academic background and despite the privileges and capital that they bring to this country, oftentimes don't have access to steady work. And I knew that this was a theme in my life that I wanted to try to tackle. And I tried doing that at the United Nations and found that while the multilateral organization like the UN is important, it also was limited in its capacity and in what it could do. And so I left the UN about a year and 4 months ago, and I came to America, and I was located in Bangkok in Thailand. And I came back here about a year plus ago and dedicated the first 6 months in trying to solve this problem by talking to individuals, immigrants, and hiring managers, and finding out what the problem in the marketplace was for why immigrants and refugees were having a hard time finding a steady job. And I found the #1 reason to be access. It's really not the question of whether the talent is there in the pipeline. The talent is there in the pipeline, but the pipeline right now is clogged. And I would argue and say that it is clogged with people who have a lot of privileges, including myself, because of the fact that I had a chance to go to Stanford and Oxford. But that's what my company Kinstep we do. We connect immigrants and refugees to safe and steady work. Immigrants are likely and statistically proven to be at a job for a longer time because of the fact that they just need to be there. And so therefore, this is a demographic that makes sense as well to place in a job. And yeah, that's what we do, and it's been an incredible pleasure doing it.
Thank you so much.
Hey guys, my name is Mahek. So my story starts actually back in high school, and I grew up watching a lot of YouTubers, and I thought it was really interesting how they could tweet something out or share something interesting, and millions of people would listen and watch what they were doing. So my senior year of high school, I decided to start a YouTube channel to document my transition into college as a freshman. So every Sunday for the year 2014, I spoke about my week and what I learned and what it was like leaving my parents' house. Going into my freshman year, it was a really big culture shock for me because I grew up with like a pretty traditional Indian family. And documenting that and seeing how much I changed throughout the span of that year was really interesting. So after I finished that project in 2014, I decided to keep it going. And I ended up building a small following at Purdue of students that were really interested in what it was like, not only what my life was like at Purdue, but also incoming students were interested in seeing what it was like coming to Purdue and what life was like. So because of that, a lot of businesses around Purdue started to hit me up, and they were like, hey, we need help with marketing, and we want to reach more Purdue students. So to legitimize the help that I was doing for them, I decided to start a marketing agency. I ran that for my whole sophomore year, and then at the end of my sophomore year, I decided to drop out, and I moved to San Francisco. So I've been here now for around a year and a half, and we work with a lot of startups, and we help them do growth marketing, so user acquisition, social growth. And in September, I decided to file to run for mayor of San Francisco, just pushing my narrative forward of wanting to bring a voice to what I find really matters. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
These stories are really hard to follow. My name is Sophia, and my story is similar to Tenzin's in terms of my parents were refugees from Vietnam back in '75, and they had a pretty rough start as I watched them as I was growing up, I saw that they made a lot of moves and a lot of advancements with very, very little. And so that, just watching that, observing that, and also having that additional pressure of having to perform to kind of appreciate the thing that they have given to us. I went to pre-med and got my biology degree in my undergrad, and then I went to get my master's in psychology. Thought that that's what they had wanted me to do. Turns out when I finished, it was really hard to find a job. And so I also married a military guy, so I was a military spouse, which is really kind of a difficult situation when you're trying to find a job and you're moving around to
I was at an under 30 group here where we
Jake, your mic's on. Mic off, please, Jake. Thank you. Mic is off. We'll continue. Sorry about that.
It's like there are voices. I'm hearing voices. No. So as a military spouse, it's really difficult as you're moving around to really start and maintain a career. So I did what I learned from my parents, which is just to make something out of nothing. And I started my first 2 businesses and really kind of growth hacked it because you kind of have to out of desperation. With my second business, I grew that to over 1 million in a year. And when we had time, when it came time for us to sell, it was quite easy for us to. And since then, since I moved back to the Bay Area, I have been running a lot of the growth marketing programs for large startup enterprise companies as well. And so just leveraging a lot of the strategies and techniques that I have just kind of innately built up from my childhood, but also learning biology and psychology and learning why people do what they do and testing that a lot. So going back to what I'm doing now, I still see myself as a small business owner at heart and really want to give back to the women and help them build their businesses.
Hi, I'm Tosh, and I'm also originally from Nova Scotia in Canada, which I think will come out in my story. But my journey started back in 2011. It was a pretty rough year for me. I lost my oldest brother to cancer. I almost lost another brother less than a month later. And then in December of that year, I myself got viral meningitis. So if you're not familiar with it, it's pretty much a swelling of the lining of your brain and spine, and you're in excruciating pain 24 hours a day. And it was at that point that I realized that my career that I was working in, which was management consulting, and my life, who I was, how I was showing up in the world, wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be. So that is when my entrepreneurial journey started. And in 2012, I launched my first business, which was Green Minutes Canada. That's when I actually started writing books, started doing my sustainability work, which is how you'll hear about my PR and how it came out of nowhere, and I leveraged that into a big career back in Canada. But now that I'm here, I have been a serial entrepreneur. I've run a digital and social media strategy firm, and now I'm here to announce that I am officially co-founder of an organization called Higher Kind with Schwan Hugh, and we help women and minorities to find work in tech. And I know what it's like to, whether you're a business owner or you're seeking employment, how it's hard when you have such a diverse and multidisciplinary career. How do you go and sell that to people? And so I'm really excited about this new journey that I'm about to be on, where we get to help so many people to find a career and work that they love. And so I look forward to sharing how that got to be later on.
Hi, I'm Mabel from Albert's List. Our Facebook group is about 32,000 members across the US. We have about 30,000 members in the Bay Area. So I decided to poke around Facebook 3 years ago, and I found this group called Albert's Job Listings. So I added myself to it, and I said, who's this Albert guy? He has like a lot of contacts. So me being new in the Bay Area, I decided that, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna help build your community because I wanna make a difference for job seekers and give them support. So the first event I hosted brought in about 250 plus people, all there for networking. And then I also hosted a females networking event. And I realized that women really need support, especially in tech, because oftentimes when you're in tech, you're often that one woman in a group of all men, probably taking notes. So I decided that some of the challenges I was facing, why not build a really great support group and leveraging some of the experiences that other female founders and entrepreneurs have, and then bringing that into my group because my group is 52% women. So Albert told me, you have a very strong female voice, bring this out and help support the women in tech in my community. So I decided to just run with a lot of events at Albert's List. I host free resume workshops, mock interview events, and a lot of networking events to really help the community because I know job seekers really need a lot of support. So I know how challenging everyone's talked about looking for a job, but Albert's List wants to provide it to you. We not only provide anything from contracting to full-time to consulting. Opportunities are out there. You just have to go out and network and find it. And just letting you know, 80% of the opportunities out there are not listed on a job board. You have to reach out to people, ask them what their needs are, and if they really like you, they'll create a role for you. So that's me. And
you guys are all amazing, by the way. My name is C. Simone. I'm the founder of Film Hero, which is a company that helps impact filmmakers. We create screening tours that are focused on social impact and social movement. And my entrepreneurial story actually started probably when I learned how to do basic math. I'm a child number 15 out of 16 kids. And so you've got to hustle to feed 16 kids, right? Not only do you got to hustle, you better teach your kids how to hustle. And so as early as I learned how to do addition, subtraction, I helped my dad run a little lottery ring in the Asian community because we love to gamble too. And just from there, you know, throughout life, I've hustled, I've done little different things here and there. I found my way to Film Hero through an idea that my little brother gave me to connect moviegoers, Star Wars clubs, chick flick groups, things like that. While I was doing that project, creating an app for that, I met so many impactful filmmakers who were telling so many great stories, and I'm ridiculously in love with storytelling and people who share their stories and trying to help people share their stories. And so I went to Sundance and was just so inspired by these filmmakers who weren't getting these great distribution deals that they deserved to share their stories. And there's all this awesome technology out here that can help market their films, can help distribute in creative ways without having to let them lose their souls to traditional distribution companies. And so that has brought me to Film Hero today. I also run Women Sporting Women, which is over 2,000 members right now in the Bay Area. We work with different companies. We help empower women to create events, to share their knowledge, their resources, and all we want to do is help women thrive.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all of your intros. You guys are all inspiring. So let's talk about a little bit more about your stories and about your companies individually. How did you get your stories out there as a company? And did you work with PR in the past? And if so, how has that helped your business?
I'll go. So I have an interesting way of how I've gotten into PR. I've had three methods of how it's worked for me. The first one is relationships. Genuine relationships, women I've met, they've just connected me to journalists, media to talk. And it's never really always about my company. Sometimes it's just sharing your thoughts on the topics that are happening out here in the tech ecosystem. The second way I've done it is actually through Hero. I don't know if anybody's heard of Hero. It's amazing. So when I first started my company, I was like, how do I get this out here? I don't have money for PR. I don't know journalists or anything. And by chance, somebody posted on Facebook, hey, if you want to connect with a reporter, go on Hero. So I just signed up for that. I saw somebody asking about, your journey, sharing your story about tips and tricks for entrepreneurship. And I happened to just give a little pitch, even though I didn't think I was qualified with the criteria that they had set. But he ended up putting me in Inc. magazine, my quote. And I was like, holy shit, that's my first I was like, it just happened. So that was my first way into actually getting publication, self-branding for myself and my company, and then it just led to building relationships with people who started connecting me to other people.
And tell me, what is HARO? And tell us a little bit more.
It stands for Help a Reporter Out.
Okay.
So reporters, journalists sign on, and people who have stories can sign on, and they send you 3 emails each throughout the day, morning, evening, I believe afternoon. They let you know what they're looking for, what stories they're trying to pitch, or what information they need and when they need it by. And if you have the pitch, you have the story, you can share it. And if they like it, they'll share it and they'll link it back to your company, link it back to whichever media channel you want to show up.
Wow, it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
I should go next.
So I mentioned earlier that I'm from Canada, and I think it's important for me to say that I wanted more opportunity, so I came to the Bay Area. But one of the things that I did from Toronto is when I started my business in 2012, I just started writing. I started writing about what I care about. So I started writing about sustainability and wellness and taking care of yourself. And it was through that writing, I had a blog. And it was through that I got picked up from Huffington Post Canada. I was listed as one of the top 50 health tweeters in Canada at the time. And so I remember having my Twitter account open, and then all of a sudden it started blowing up, and I was like, what's going on? Where are these people coming from? Only to realize that I had posted, and it literally kick-started my whole business, simply from me posting about things that I love, that I wanted to share, that I thought people wanted to hear about. So I wanted to impress the importance of knowing who you are and really being passionate about something and sharing it with the world. Don't be afraid. I mean, when I started writing, I didn't even realize there was an audience for what I was doing. I just figured I love this stuff. I want to share the tips that I'm learning on how to keep myself healthy and keep my family healthy. And then there was somebody who was watching. And so that was huge for me. Passion is the underlying thing that never leaves anything that I decided to do. But the next thing was, after I got that nod, I ended up trying to figure out who actually did this so I could reach back out and say thank you for this publication, like out of nowhere. And to be quite honest, I still don't know who did that. But I was able to use that connection to go back and connect with literally all the Huffington Post people and Huffington Post Live and just say, you know what, thank you for what you're doing, but I want to know who else needs what I'm doing. You named me as, you know, top health tweeter. How else can I get involved? And I was able to use that to then connect with way more Huffington Post journalists and get connected to other people in the media. So networking, being confident and just reaching out to people and say, hey, this is where I'm at. Do you know who I need to speak with? Really does work. And again, if you're coming from a place of passion, it speaks stronger than any other thing that I've found.
So for me, one of the things that Simone gave me advice, this is a testament to how awesome women supporting women can be, but she also told me about the HARO, which is Help a Reporter Out, and there was a reporter from Forbes that she specifically writes about women in tech, and all of the topics that she was asking for I thought were really relevant, and I thought I had an opportunity to share my story. So for a couple of publications that went out, I pitched my story, and she wrote back and said, sorry, this is not exactly the angle that I wanted. And after 2 times, I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna reach out to her directly and start a conversation. And I said, you know, I really do find that the topics that you wanna talk about are very interesting, and they're right along where I'm passionate about. So perhaps maybe we can, you know, if you don't mind, I'm going to continue pitching until I get you get the right angle. And so when I wrote that, I really didn't expect her to write back, because I'm pretty sure she gets a lot of these pitches. But she ended up setting a phone call up with me, and she wanted to hear my whole story. And from there, she said, I just want to hear your whole story so that I can pick out different topics, and whenever I do have an idea for a topic, I'll feature you. So that's how I got featured on Forbes. One of the other things that I did which is kind of a concept we call in our growth hacking world. It's called newsjacking. And I found a topic that was very polarizing, but also something that I'm very passionate about. How many of you have heard of the Google manifesto that went out a couple of months ago? Okay, so that unfortunately went out on I think a Thursday night, Friday, and when I had heard about it, it was Friday. And I was hosting, we were Women Supporting Women, we had an event at Google on that following Tuesday called the I'm Remarkable Initiative, which is to help women actually amplify their voices in the workplace in order to get promotion, but also in a way that is authentic to share their voices. So I had been sitting on a lot of this data that I had been collecting over the last couple of weeks on just how women and men are wired biologically different. Again, just bringing back the science and psychology piece of me. I was doing this for fun, believe it or not. Just thinking about how I could use this piece, but when the article came out, when the leak came out on that Friday, I thought, gosh, who else is going to bring this perspective of being a woman in tech and being a woman, a minority in tech, who's talking about, who's done the research, already had the research done on how we're wired differently, how we think and talk and speak differently, what the social conditioning we've had to undergo as girls to adults, and what the challenges are. That I wrote this piece on Medium the entire weekend. So Saturday and Sunday I hunkered down. I had my husband watch the kids. They were out at the pool. And I just wrote, and I just kept writing. And I didn't really care. That was the first time that I kind of put aside all of my fears. And I thought, God, who else is going to do this? And if I don't do this now, then when am I going to do this? I'm sitting on all this data and information. I should speak up. And it was a really scary experience, to be honest, like writing this whole thing. It ended up being an 18-minute read. You can find it on Medium. But once I finished writing it, I hit publish and I shut my laptop off and I went to dinner with a couple of friends, and I didn't look back at my social media or anything until the following day, where everything else exploded. The piece had gone viral overnight, and Woman 2.0, Code Like a Girl reached out, and they had said, we want to feature you. And so I had initially thought that this was a great opportunity to newsjack, but as I was going through it, a lot of the fears came out, and I pushed through because I thought, well, I could just see it as an opportunity, or I could see it as I need to do something about this. And so that was what motivated me, and that's coming from a place of passion. And I think that story and that sharing that voice is what got to a lot of women and men included in a lot of the PR companies.
I was just going to share 2 tips, which I think some of them the speakers and panelists addressed already. The first is alignment. I think it's incredibly important not to give up at your first attempt. I remember talking to a friend, and she said, well, my pitch wasn't accepted, and I think she was trying to pitch it at SF Chronicle, and she said, I don't think I'm going to go forward. And I thought it was an incredible writing, and I said, well, just wait for the right time. I was working with Heather, who is one of the next speakers, and that was the advice she gave as well, which was that continue to refine your story and make sure that you're watching out for the national and local and regional headlines, because your story may not resonate in 2011, but it could definitely resonate in 2014 or 2017. And that's what happened with me. I remember Kinstep was incorporated about 6 months ago, but we'd been doing the work for over a year. And in the beginning, when I go to people to talk about my story, and some of it was with journalists, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's good effort. Yeah, immigrants, they're getting them jobs. That's good for you. And then all of a sudden, the immigration ban happened. President Trump happened. And those events led to now journalists coming to me and saying, hey, you're one of the few technology startups in the Bay Area that's working on a national movement. How can we write about you, and how can we integrate your story? And so I think, it's the continued effort and alignment and finding that trajectory with your story and how that can align with the national story. That's one. And then the second thing that I really found useful was getting your voice out there. I think oftentimes there's a fear, especially among women and women of color, that our voices don't matter enough, that we shouldn't be writing these stories, but in fact it should be us. My friend Ernestine and I had written about the recent series of assault and harassment that women have been experiencing in Silicon Valley. And we pitched the story to a few major outlines like The Atlantic, New York Times, and they didn't accept it. But now we will be getting a major outlet who's accepted our pitch, and we're going to be writing about it. But in fact, there are many moments I was trying to get this story to multiple friends, and I was asking and making a lot of overtures to make sure that the story was told. Because as women of color, as someone put it, the experiences are so nuancedly different. And being a CEO of a company as a woman of color, sometimes you're even mistaken to be the PA when you walk in a room full of investors. And those are experiences that I think particularly need to be told not by men, but by women of color. And therefore, I was very adamant that we're the ones who tell that story. And I did not give up. And it was 4 months of pitching and talking to the right people. And we're going to get that story out in the outlet. But that is number two, is making sure that you never, ever underestimate your own voice and your own story. Everybody has a story to tell.
Thank you so much. I think you're tapping into such a crucial part about the fear that we all have about not speaking up. So I think it's so important. I love that you pushed through, even though they said no, and no, you're still continuing to share that voice, and it has to be us. I want to open this up to questions from our audience in the room here. Yes, one question.
I'm like PR level 0, so I don't even get it when you say pitch your story to journalists. When you write an article for them, you just write a 10 lines email, and how do you find them? I don't even know how to find them.
Okay, that's a great. I'm going to repeat the question for folks in the live stream. So it's, how do you pitch your story? What is a pitch? What is a pitch for journalists, and how do you do it?
I'm going to speak because I also use Haro, which is a service, and you can, if you look it up online, it's actually free to be added to the list. And what happens is reporters literally across America will be looking for stories, and they'll tell you specifically what they need. In some cases, they just need 2 lines. Tell me about what your angle is. So if you want to write, let's say it's about women in tech, you may want to share a 2-3 liner about your story and what your angle is and what you want to write about. And they'll ask for whatever other details. Maybe it's a regional question. They want to know a specific angle for a company or something that's going on in the area. But they will give you the details. They'll tell you what you need to do, and you just have to craft it and get used to doing it.
So what you're telling me is that the journalists don't write, I have to write? That's like blows me out. They don't interview me, I have to write for them?
So like a year ago, I was exactly in your position, and one of the things that I found is if you can try and start to build your audience, and even if you could get 100 people that really vibe with you and the message that you're trying to get across, you can probably find someone to want to tune your story with you. I've had this really funny love-hate relationship with PR that every time I've gone after it, I've never gotten it. But the other way around, where it's like, I'll do something and they'll be like, oh, that's really interesting, and they'll come and pitch me. So, but I found those opportunities have always come to me after I've made a video about it, or I've written a blog about it, or I've made a LinkedIn post about it. So I would say a really good place to start is definitely pitch people, start to refine your story. And I found for me it's helped a lot to make videos. I've started doing like a daily vlog now on Facebook every day where I upload a video talking about my day and something new that I've learned or something interesting or a topic. And I've found that just by reinforcing my story every single day, you start to refine it and it forces you to rethink about things. So I'd say work on refining your story and then also figure out what is the best way to get your voice out there and go after it.
I just want to answer. Journalists do write, but you write first. is how it goes. And there is a certain way you have to pitch your story in order to get it seen, because they get probably over 1,000 stories for the same topic that they're trying to write about, and you have to make yourself stand out. If you go on Herald, they actually give you a structure of how you can grab the journalist's attention, what you should say, how long it should be, how short it should be. So, yeah.
Right. Any other questions in the audience?
Hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Mary Jo. First off, I just want to say, I used to be a journalist. I've been to hundreds of conferences, and I think this is the first panel I've ever seen that was entirely made up of women of color, which is amazing. Also, what the hell? Why did it take so long? But nonetheless, so kudos. So, used to be a journalist, just joined Google about 2 months ago, and one of the things I'm curious to ask about, this is sort of related to working with PR and working with journalists. Each of you, your organizations, yourself, has a brand. And as I'm sure many of us know in the room, brand is really important to your elongated success, retaining that brand, making something, really stick. So I'm curious, how do you make sure that your brand both grows in a positive way, but also retains the kind of best elements of it when you're putting your story out there?
I've actually run into this issue a lot, especially since I decided to file to run for mayor. When you're entering yourself into politics, it's a completely different game, whereas when you're trying to pitch your story, you can do more controversial stuff, but with politics, it's very hush-hush. One of the things that I've found that's really helped me is I like to give myself reality checks first and tell myself, okay, what can I accomplish? What am I going after? And then the second thing that I try to keep in mind is that what you don't say doesn't go out. So it's all about crafting your story. And I've found that even if a reporter asks me something or something that I'm not happy about, just refusing to answer it or saying something along the lines of like, I don't know how to answer this properly, so not giving an answer to it, I found has really helped with crafting the story the way I'd like it to be crafted.
One of the things that I found to be extremely useful in helping to maintain a brand is I have chosen to personally be out there. So I share my opinions on things. I'm very authentic. So I've had the case, I love video, by the way. If you're not using video, I think it's an amazing way for you to be able to craft your story and tell the story how you want to. It's free for the most part. And if you've got an iPhone or a new Android, that's all you need. You don't need photographers or videographers. You can do it yourself. And that helps to maintain your story. And also you get to control what you're allowing people to see. But one of my biggest feedback loops is if I go somewhere and I want to be someone who is inspiring, who's very positive, and who comes with solutions. I come to the table ready. And for me, using video has allowed me to make sure that no matter where I am in the world, in Canada, in the US, in Australia, it doesn't matter, I have an ability to say, here's my calling card, you want to know me? Here's a bit about me, and I get to choose and control that narrative as much as I can. Another thing is, too, making sure that whatever you're putting out is as real as possible. Anybody who's ever seen me do my Instagram, I do dancing full live on Instagram, and I upload them because for me, that allows people to see that I'm not afraid to take risks, I'm not afraid to go for it, and I'm also not afraid to show my human side, even though I do very strategic management consulting kind of work. And I think using video, it's available, it's free, it's a great way for you to get used to it, and also to have people pick you up. I've had writers reach out to me because they're like, I saw what you did on LinkedIn, do you want to talk more? And so you having some type of video calling card, I agree, it's a great way to get your name out there and for you to help build your personal brand.
I think that's a question that many people are still struggling to answer, to be truthful, which is how do you grow your brand and the communities that you interact with while also having the quality and also it being meaningful. And I think that it requires two things, which is disposition. The first is that an attitude of humility, knowing that there may be times where the people in your community, as you're maybe changing your community, your brand, and growing it, that there will be people who may not like what you have to say, who may dismiss what you have to say, but to approach it with some level of humility, to take in those interactions seriously, and see how to take their feedback. Because I think that is an important part of your brand, is one that, as you put it really beautifully, is being authentic. And then the second disposition, which I find really useful and helpful with the people I follow, is also, as you said, like being careful and selective about what you share and also what you don't share. And so selectively, you know, and discerning which parts of your story you do want to share, because in the end, like, you have the power of your own story and no one can take that away from you, whether it's your opinions, your ideas, or your vision.
Wonderful. Okay, so we are almost out of time, but one last question of the audience. Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to ask each of you, thinking about the challenges you've gone through as entrepreneurs, being a woman of color, any kind of challenges, what's one piece of advice you'd give to any entrepreneurs out here starting out? Just one piece. 30 seconds if possible.
The only advice that not only keep yourself motivated, but continue to motivate each other. That's gonna get us to where we all need to be. I live life about giving and always helping each other. You have the resource, you have the time, even if it's as simple as introducing somebody via email, do it. That's my advice as an entrepreneur, because it has helped me as well. It's come back full circle from other people who I've never expected anything from. It was just helping you out. It's come back where they've come back and helped me out even greater.
My one piece of advice is giving to the community. So the law of reciprocity goes, if you do a good deed for one good deed for someone, someone does two good deeds back to you. So really supporting community, supporting each other with positivity, and kind of asking, like, I know a lot of job seekers are struggling. If you go on offers list and you just reach out, you just introduce yourself, you reach out about some of your struggles you're facing as a job seeker, everyone will be here to support you. So
I would say my one piece of advice is to use your unnatural advantage. We all have one, especially as women. The amount of things that we go through and we still keep moving forward gives us something that no one can take away, and it's hard to match. I've been told so many times when I was a founder that I was scary. And so what I did was I took that and I turned that into, well, wouldn't you want me to be fighting for you? Wouldn't you want me to be on your side? So whatever your unnatural advantage is, just go with it and use it as much as you can.
One of the things that I've had to learn was redefining what success looked like and what failure isn't. The thing that I've found myself holding a lot back is, what is this idea of failure, and do I really fail? And as an entrepreneur, you fail every day. But you just have to get used to that and just like come to terms with it and then get back up and keep trying, because you don't actually fail unless you give up. And so you should always look for things that you're learning and keep trying again.
The biggest thing I've learned is that life keeps on moving. And you have to keep on going out there and trying new things, and slowly things will start to shift the way you'd like them to go. If you sit and you don't do anything, or you wait for opportunities to come to you, they're never going to come to you. So you have to go out there, you have to find it, and also, if it doesn't work out, that's fine. There's going to be the next day or the next week to go after something else.
My advice would be from an experience that I've had, which is that a lot of people in my time in Silicon Valley and at Stanford were trying to solve problems and go into and enter spaces and communities that they were not members of. And when you're trying to lead communities that you're not a member of, you don't quite understand their problem. And so consider being a member first. That's my advice.
Wow. Thank you. With that said, I'd like to thank each of you again for joining this panel. You are all so inspiring and incredible, and I hope you've learned so much from them. Thank you again to this panel. All right. We'll be introducing our second panel.
Wow. That's all I can say. I just want to say how incredibly honored it is to be a part of this. There's plenty of people that are far more qualified to be in my shoes right now. So for our second panel, it will be our PR and media panel. So if we could have Liz, Desiree, Ashley, Heather, and Charlotte come up to the stage. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. I'll just give a quick intro for everybody, and then you all can kind of tell your story. Right next to me we have Elizabeth Zaborowska. She is the founder of Bava Communications. Bava is one of our generous partners, sponsors for this event. I mean, she's with all these speakers. I mean, the entire list of their accomplishments would literally take the rest of the week to even get through just a few of them. So we have Liz, and we have Desiree, Peterkin Bell. And that's another one. What hasn't Desiree done? She's worked on national, major presidential campaigns. 2012. She goes into high-profile, big, massive Fortune 500 and more companies, and advises them on maybe some mistakes they've made or what they should do better. And she's just a great advocate for her community. Next, we have Heather DeSantis. Heather is one of those just on fire women entrepreneurs. She is one of the most tenacious PR people that I know. I think she averages like, 30, 50, 60 features or interviews a month for her clients. And just how she does it, it's just fantastic. And what it takes to do that, after the last panel, they spoke about how it's hard to pitch, it's hard to get your story out there. For her to have that kind of success is pretty incredible. Then we have Charlotte Ward. Charlotte is from the UK originally. She's a veteran journalist. She's has about an 18-year career in journalism, writing for a lot of the national publications in the UK. So for those of you who are curious about what are the nuances of working with media in Australia and in Britain, what are some of the nuances you should take into consideration. She also has written, is it 11 books? Yeah. 11 books as well. So just a phenomenal writer, and just a fantastic addition to our panel. And then on the end we have Ashley Crouch. I don't know what publication Ashley doesn't write for, but her list of publications range from Forbes to she's been featured in Time, she's been featured in Business Insider, Huffington Post, New York Times, Fasco, Refiner 29, and the list goes on. I'll turn it over to the panel. Let's start here with you, Liz. Kind of what got your start in PR, and just tell us your story.
Hi everyone, I'm super excited to be here and to sponsor this really great event. I got my start in PR through a very circuitous route. I originally wanted to be a veterinarian, and so from age 1 to 21, I did everything possible to take biology courses and physics courses and chemistry courses, and I did a summer program at Cornell and dissected horses, and I was all in, and then I went to work for a vet and found that if I handle needles, I passed straight out. And so this was shocking because I was fine in a lab, but completely a disaster at the operating room. And so I had always been one of those kids that thought, I don't understand how people don't know what they want to do when they grow up. And that was an incredible amount of arrogance that life taught me and slapped me down and said, well, now you're going to have to figure it out. I'd always been a really strong writer. I had done a work-study job, and I had done some editing, and I was really, really fortunate. Learned some marketing, blah, blah. Got out of college, thought I wanted to be an actress, went to New York. And then the dot-com was happening, and so I saw a business opportunity. My mom had been an entrepreneur. She was a dental surgeon, had come from Poland, and with a suitcase with my dad. So they left when, so I'm first-gen immigrant, also first-gen American. And learned English here, started a dental surgery business, was super, super successful, and I saw that, and I was like, all right, well, maybe I can start a thing. And so I just, I started getting clients taking brick and mortar companies online to e-commerce. E-commerce sites were gonna save the world and save business. And I did really well, and I made lots of money, and then the dot-com crash happened, and I had my butt handed to me. So I got into the tech industry because of somebody that I met at a club. And so started at the bottom, sort of ripping on what the other panel was saying, is that that you just can't give up. You just have to keep going. So started at the bottom, and within 6 years I was running the marketing department, decided I wanted to work at a PR agency to learn PR, because I'd always PR people working for me, and agencies like Ogilvy and boutique agencies, but I was consistently frustrated that at the time, PR and marketing were not talking to each other. And then social media was coming to the fore, and people thought, well, no one's gonna wanna do that for B2B. So I worked in an agency for 3 years, and then in 2009, at the belly of the recession, where everyone told me I was crazy to quit my job. I had a very well-paying job and everything was great, but I was supporting my dad, and I'm like, there's no way that I'll be able to support my dad's family and myself if I keep doing this. And so I quit my job with $10,000 in the bank, and I started Bottle Communications in my kitchen. And now we've been on the Inc. 5000 list for 4 years running. The company's almost 9 years old. Thank you. We've moved from my kitchen to a little yellow house to now a 10,000 square foot space in Emeryville that we've had for 5 years, so it's our own building. And we just opened up Austin in May, so the company's growing like crazy. We've got amazing clients and amazing people, and I'm honored to be on this panel.
My name is Desiree. I think my story is a bit different. I'm in politics and policy and all the craziness that makes you twinge when you see a CNN alert. That's what we do, or try to stop in some cases. So my story is, you know, I grew up thinking that I had to go get a really good job. I didn't come from a lot of money. My mother was a single mother. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. She was one of the first African-American students to integrated school in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. Anyone who's heard of Bensonhurst, you know, historically it's not a very friendly place, though they have tried to change. She was chased home from school every single day by ignorant white boys who told her she didn't belong. Until one day she stopped running, faced them, and said, you can beat me today, but tomorrow I'm still coming back. And so for me, I've always learned from my mother, don't allow bullies to win. And so that's always been embedded in me. But I saw my mother struggle, and I thought that I was supposed to get a high-paying job. And so I wanted to be an attorney. I worked at a really big law firm. Worked on some interesting cases. U.S. Tobacco was one of them. I did not like how it made me feel. And I had what I called a quarter-life crisis. At the time, it is real, okay? Don't let anyone tell you it ain't real. It's real. And I questioned what I wanted to do with my life, right? You had all these choices. I'm supposed to do this, supposed to do that. And then really just settled on my purpose, which was I knew I came from a family of advocacy and a family that focused on being a voice for people who didn't have a voice. And so I decided to commit my time and energy and passion to government. So I went back to school, got a master's in public policy, and then I started working with Bart Peterson in Indianapolis. He became the first mayor in the country to have the authority to charter schools. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, as I said. So I had been courted by this guy who wanted to run for mayor. His name was Michael Bloomberg and his team, and I was like, dude, you're a billionaire. Like, who wants to run for mayor? Who doesn't? But that's okay, sure, I'll chat, sure. And then 9/11 happened. And I knew I needed to come home and help rebuild my city. And so I made a decision to come back to New York City and to be an advisor to him and his team. We did amazing things in New York City. And we'll talk a little bit about it, but one of the things I did was, there was no blueprint for like, okay, when you have the largest terrorist attack in the largest city in America, how do you bring it back? There was no book. There was no, how do you make sure that people still feel safe and that government continues to do what it does? And so that was part of my job. And then I went to work for Cory Booker in Newark, New Jersey, who was a good friend of mine and a good friend still, like a big brother. And we redefined a city that had only been defined by the 1967 riots. And it is a predominantly African-American town, or black and brown city, that had often been forgotten. And so our challenge was, how do you get this black and brown town and city to let the nation know that we were going to be the epitome of urban transformation? And then shortly after that, I decided to leave Newark and then come to Philadelphia and work for Michael Nutter, and I served in 2 appointed positions, the youngest person on his team to do that, both as a city representative, so I had all the powers of the mayor when he did not, and I also served as his director of communications and strategy, so trying to pull the city of Philadelphia from the 19th century to the 21st, went through a whole bunch of other things. And through that time, I had known this guy who had a funny name, Barack Obama, and he and I and his team had worked together very closely, and then I decided in 2012 to help run Pennsylvania with a gentleman by the name of Bill Hires, and we delivered that for the country. So we're continuing to still do a whole bunch of stuff. So I have a firm. We have offices and partners in LA, New York, DC, Tel Aviv, Philadelphia. We are growing, probably a little quicker than I would like, but that's okay. And I live in purpose, not position. So I've served in every single position in terms of policy, government, and politics. And my job every single day is to make sure that when I wake up, my 9-year-old daughter has a better life today than she did yesterday.
And I know we were taking photos of her today to make sure that her daughter knew she wasn't at Disney without her today. So I'm Heather, and it's really funny. I was a communication major in college, and when I went to college, I wanted to be an art therapist so I could work with children in the hospital with a terminal illness, because big picture, what I want to do is just give of my time, but I learned to do that. It was going to take 6 years. So I'm like, oh, great, I'll be a communication major. But the problem is my degree sucked. And there was nothing tactile. There was nothing about public relations. It was all about interpersonal communication and how we have changed over time. And I had no idea how to even apply my major into life today. And I really believe that's a problem in universities. Right? So what happened is my senior year of college, I got headhunted, and oh my gosh, how exciting, you get headhunted to work for someone else. So I ended up working for an investment company, so I literally spent all my time basically learning French. I knew nothing about finance, and I got my Series 6. And what happened is a local TV station was doing a TV segment about boomerang kids. So boomerang kids who, you know, they're going to school. It's $50,000 a year, and they have to live at home because they can't survive. And at the time in 2011, a lot of my friends had to live at home because they couldn't find jobs. So a TV station came to my house, interviewed my mom, interviewed me. It was a very raw story, and at the time I worked at the investment company. Because mind you, it was all commission, and I had to make money to have gas money to go to appointments. I was a wine tender, and they came to film me there, and it's just, that was my epiphany, and that I really wanted, I mean, big picture, I don't know, selfishly always dreamed of being a TV anchor. You know, fun. There was this woman in Columbus, Ohio, that basically covered all of the community affairs shows, and like, how cool would it be to go and be a positive light and, you know, cover positive events. So what happened is I left my job at the investment company December 2011, and then I started interning at an advertising agency where I worked from 2012 to 2015, and that's where I learned everything. It was a very traditional agency, but literally, like, I could not go home on Friday and I would be burned at the stake if I did not secure 35 TV and radio interviews for clients. And because I knew that I didn't want to spend my life being there every day until 8, I had to figure out how to leverage relationships. And at the time, I was only working with food brands. So, I mean, everything from green beans to Popeye spinach. So how do you get media really caring to talk about Popeye spinach and green beans? You know, so I had an amazing time there. I got to do a lot of the cause marketing campaigns for Panera Bread, and then I was a handler for 2 NFL players where we created huge cause marketing campaigns with the largest producer of pork rinds, and I managed all the media. So I was really happy, and honestly what happened to me, which is very similar to your story to an extent, is it was June 15th, 2015, and I believe that a lot of millennials were different, and I feel like a lot of us always are going to have our hands in different pools, and we're always going to be hustlers until we find our way. And what happened to me is on June 15th, 2015, I was given an ultimatum from my employer, a very small company, that I could choose to work for them 110% or continue to make lemonade money doing Beachbody. I mean, I was a coach helping my friends, and I made $1,000 a month. It was fun, a side hobby. And it was that moment that I decided to pave my own way, and I quit on the spot. I moved home. It's very different when you're living alone downtown and then you move back home. So I moved back home, and then I literally, like, months later, I started doing freelance work. I got paid $100 to do a TV segment for someone who was running websites, and it was that moment when I pitched a market, that I never pitched before, and got a yes from a producer right away that I knew that this was my purpose in life. And I always worried, like, with a passion and excitement and positive high and just pure obsession of successes for clients ever go away, and it hasn't. So since then, it's just been, a blessing of miracles and journeys, and now I live in San Diego, and, really in a place of, growing our team and looking in the future, really only working with impact-based companies and people, because this past year I was blessed in working with a lot of online entrepreneurs. If you guys are building a business, you can really build an amazing business with organic referrals and social media. But it's just been a blessing, and the fact that, we all get to be together and be amongst you is such a blessing.
Hi everyone, I'm Charlotte, and really my career kind of started when I was 14. I was living in a small village in the English countryside, not far from where Harry Potter was filmed, and I kind of became this fangirl with my local radio station. I just thought the DJs were like the best thing ever, and I wasn't content just listening to them. I wanted to meet them, so I just became this kind of crazy stalker, to be honest, and I kept haranguing them, asking for work experience at the radio station, and eventually I think I wrote about 6 letters, because it was letters back then, not email, and they finally let me into the radio station where I did work experience, and it kind of just grew from there. I started answering the phones at the radio station, and I was kind of convinced that I wanted to be a radio DJ, so I started studying journalism and radio. But then when I was studying journalism and radio, I kind of realised that I just loved writing. So it wasn't so much the talking that I liked, it was the writing, interviewing people, writing up their stories. So I kind of changed my direction completely and went on to study print journalism at college for 3 years. So from there I got my first job on a press agency in Liverpool. And it was kind of my job to find really kind of often quite seedy stories, couples having fights and about the sister stealing her sister's husband or something like that, and then I had to go and knock on their door and like ask them for their story for like magazines in the UK. I didn't like the intrusive bit so much, but what I really enjoyed is when people liked talking to me. Like I liked sitting down with them and hearing their stories, and I really enjoyed just being able to help them to get their story across, and to have them say to me after I'd written it, oh, I love how you've written it, I could never have written it that way. So that was really, for me, I realised that just people's stories like really resonated with me. So I kind of went on from there. I worked for a few like local newspapers, and then I went to work for the Daily Mirror in London on their features desk, and I did a lot of like real life stories there. And just over time I got talking to, we had a girl who did a column for us. She was on a BBC series, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer just after her baby was born, so I used to write her column every single week. And I actually ghostwrote her column for a while, and then in the meantime I had written a dating book of my own, which was all about like my disastrous love life, and about how all my, it was called Why Am I Always the One Before the One? And it was basically how every single guy I dated would then like marry the next person. So thankfully that has ended now. I am now happily married. However, I wrote this book, and because I had written a book, I had like a great relationship with a publisher. So I then said, you know, this girl whose column I'm doing every week, I'd really love to write her story. So we got her a book deal, and I ghostwrote her book, and then from there really my career kind of developed to ghostwriting. I continued with the journalism, writing people's stories, and I went on to ghostwrite 9 books for various people, from like midwives in the outback of Australia to, I recently worked with Tess Holliday, who's a plus size supermodel in LA. I helped her to write her book, which came out in September. And I guess through my career I've just realised that I just love working with women. I love hearing their stories. I love to get their message across about the empowering things they do. And I've kind of taken that to the next step, which is just like, I heard you ask earlier about how you write, like how you pitch the media. So my thing now is like, I'm just trying to help people to learn themselves how to pitch the media. It's really not that difficult. There's like simple things you can do. So today I hope like I can answer some questions, and I can give you some just very simple tips to pitch the media yourself and get your story out there.
Hi everyone, I'm Ashley Crouch, and how I got started in PR, first of all, I had no idea what PR even was. I grew up in a little town in Arkansas at the end of a dirt road, and I had ankle-length denim skirts for every day of the week. So the concept of PR to me, when I couldn't even see my neighbors, that's how rural we were, was really quite foreign, but I always knew I wanted to make a difference. And I always knew I wanted to help people be heard. And I believe stories are so powerful, and they have the power to mobilize people into action if we tell them in the right way. So through a series of roundabout events, I wound up going to college. I was the first woman on both sides of my family to graduate with a degree. And then I wound up moving to New York City, which was a culture shock, if you can imagine, coming from Arkansas in denim skirts. And I was invited to be on the first no Photoshop fashion magazine to exist. It was a platform to help celebrate the best of who women already are. Because at the time, 2011, there really wasn't anything, and fashion magazines were creating content that my friends and I felt that didn't actually represent the types of lives or the futures that we wanted to create. So during this whole launch process, I realized that I actually loved telling the story of the magazine and the mission behind it. So without any background whatsoever, I just started pitching, and I became the PR manager through the launch. And it was about the time the Today Show started contacting us that I realized that media was really powerful. We wound up getting 180 features in 8 months. We were in the Queen Latifah Show, we were in Upworthy, Huffington Post Live, CNBC, all these different ones. And I woke up, I had taken a vacation, first time in like 3 years. I woke up, I checked my work email, which you should never do on your vacation or your birthday. But it was my birthday, and I checked my work email, and I saw that the story in Huffington Post had gone live and had gone viral around the world. And it went viral to 7 countries. It was 42,000 likes and shares, and it was this match that lit the current blaze of empowerment marketing that we now see in the world today, which should only continue. So after 3 years there, I realized, stories are incredibly powerful, and so many people are not heard because they don't know how to tell their stories. So as women founders was a team of 5, all women, we worked in co-working spaces where we were the only women's table. And the UPS guys would drop the packages off at our table thinking we were the secretaries. And so we just thought, okay, something has to change. So in 2014, I launched a PR company. It's now the first one-for-one PR company to exist. We offer microloans to women entrepreneurs in resource-poor nations. We're working in 12 countries so far. And I also developed an accelerator program to teach and train A to Z how to tell your story. It's the only thing like it in the market, 27 modules. And it literally offers all the pitch templates I use, all the story angles, which I've broken down into a formula. So the whole concept around it is to elevate the stories that deserve to be told so we can hear more about the positive world changers instead of, anyway. So that's what I do.
That line right there, that's why we did this event, because I mean, just look at the amazing work of each and every one of you. It's mind-boggling, and it's quite incredible. So for those, something that I found just in my own business, doing public affairs, media relations, there's a lot of people, especially in the entrepreneur community, who are very heavy marketing focused, and PR is kind of like that black sheep that they don't really pay attention to. They kind of want it, but they don't really focus on it because they don't know that it's necessary. So when you come across someone like that, how do you take them to say, actually this is PR, this is what it is, and this is why. So you want to start that, Ashley?
Okay, sure. So it's such a great question, and I'm working with entrepreneurs now about 7 years. What I've realized is that many people approach PR like they approach Tinder. Swipe right and hope you get something. So a lot of people still operate by the spray and pray method of getting the press release out there and just hope that something lands. And what I've realized is that's not a great way to land a long-term relationship. So PR is about creating, it's like dating. You're creating a relationship with your target customers that translates into loyal, long-term, happy, satisfied clients and customers and plus growth. So the question around moving people to appreciate PR is that PR is actually a way to, one, in the world we live, the ecosystem we live in, credibility, social proof, and if you see an ad on a Facebook newsfeed, you know someone paid to put it there. But if you read an article where your friend was featured in Fast Company, you know they were actually awesome enough to be featured. So it's higher trust, builds greater loyalty, and it's something that supplements so that you can move into higher quality referrals, easier sales, more clients and customers, and greater social credibility over time.
I would add on top of that was really great, that there's statistics that say that people ignore ads at alarming rates that keep increasing. So it's something like 80% of ads, whereas people are still actually reading articles. Further, 71% of consumers make purchases based on something that has been flagged on social media. So the beauty of getting PR and getting an article that is then amplified through social media is the reach now is really, really huge. So although attention spans might be smaller and an article might not live for as long, the reality is that the reach is really huge. And so if somebody doesn't, somebody thinks that marketing, itself is going to be enough, they don't understand the concept of inbound marketing, because one really good article that goes viral, or even if it doesn't go viral, it's really well targeted, it can spark a whole bunch of inbound interest that then in turn sparks more inbound interest.
You brought up a point there about targeted PR. I think one of the difficulties probably in the entrepreneur community is PR metrics. How do you measure how effective the campaign is? So how do you go about saying, okay, these are my KPIs, or at least somewhat, because it's still a bit of a soft kind of, it's kind of like sales. It's still kind of a soft industry in that it's harder to measure a little bit than marketing, but it is measurable. So how do you go about explaining that?
Sure. So one of the big things is making sure that you've got Google Analytics set up on your website. And if you have a business, you have a website, make sure you have the Google Analytics set up and see how the traffic is being driven when you're doing different PR efforts. So try a bunch of different things and see if you're getting more traffic. Also, depending on how advanced your business is, having a platform like HubSpot or Marketo or something like that, where you can actually track where the leads are coming from is really, really helpful. And then targeting is dangerous sometimes. So one of the philosophies that we have is when we want people to work with us, because as an entrepreneur, there's a lot that you can do yourself. By the time that you want to hire an agency, think about if you're ready to go big. Because you hire an agency so that you can scale and amplify what you're doing by multitudes, so that you can focus actually on your core business and you have a bunch of PR professionals that are doing what you were doing in one-offs at a much larger scale. And what that looks like is when we talk to clients, we say, more is better. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not targeted. But it is different than saying, well, let's just try this one thing and do another and do rolling thunder. Rolling thunder is a concept from 5 years ago. It just doesn't really work anymore. You gotta go out there and collect a bunch of cool stuff about your company and then make a big pop. And so we do these things called triple threat launches where it's a bunch of data that you've collected, it's something about your product, and it's a vision story or something like that. And then you go to the journalists with that and make a big pop, and then you can do onesie, twosie, smaller stuff.
Okay. Desiree, I wanted to kind of bring that forward because there's PR and then there's public affairs, which is what you do and it's what I do. So how do you use some of what Liz said and move it into the kind of the policy, the movement sort of communications that you do in public affairs?
Yeah, so we're a little different. So we are a public affairs agency. So I say that we represent causes, movements, and purpose. So, for example, if you are, how many of you are on Obamacare? Know what it is? Okay, so we make sure that people know what it is, number one, the resources that are available through Obamacare, and number three, how to sign up and what it means, right? And so for us, we're not just focused on getting it on TV or getting it in an article or getting it featured somewhere. We focus on making an impact in people's lives and moving the needle forward. And so PR is a part of that. So some of the PR metrics that we have used or how we use PR to move some of these things forward. So I always used to say this when I was a city official. If a mayor, a president, a congressional member, anyone who's in elected office has a great idea, right? And their communications person is not at that table, well then the idea will fail, right? It's gonna fail. Why is it gonna fail? It's gonna fail because communications is how you actually even roll the thing you're trying to get past, introduced out to people so that they know it matters to them. So it's not just about the article, the placement, it's about how does this make my life better, right? How is it going to improve my day-to-day? How is it going to give me something today that I didn't have yesterday? And so, for example, today in DC, some of our team is in DC because they are marching and being arrested for the DREAM Act, a clean DREAM Act, not one that's full with a whole bunch of other stuff. And so for us, we focus on how do we move the needle forward that impacts various constituencies, right, to make a greater good for the greater purpose. Our focus really is trying to use PR strategies on a much global scale. So a couple months ago, I went to India and I sat down with, which was really pretty an amazing trip. I was invited to speak to a number of women entrepreneurs, and I spoke to the new chair of the Women's Commission over there. She sat me down, she took out her budget, and she said, here, we've been in existence for 25 years and the government funds us. And I was like, what? The government funds y'all? Really? Wow, that's deep. Let me try to bring this idea back to the US. Yeah, not so much. But part of that conversation was, how do we connect with women globally? There are some issues that are similar, and then there are some very distinct issues within the community, right? We're not a monolithic group. And so everything that we use is trying to, number one, figure out what people's purposes is or are, right? So when I sit down with a client, I want to know not what you want to, you don't want to, if you want to be on the cover of X, Y, and Z magazine, you cannot talk to us. I need to understand what your purpose is. Why do you want to be on the cover? What movement, what cause, what commitment are you trying to push? Are you trying to inform people about? That's what we focus on. And so I think there is one of the biggest distinctions between public affairs and straight PR is that, which is that we move movements. We represent movements. So I work very closely with Black Lives Matter. I work very closely with the women who put the Women's March together and the Women's Convention. I work very closely with those women who were announced today as the Silence Breakers and Time Person of the Year, right? Those are the things that we do. So in terms of how do you know you're being impactful and effective, that's how. When everyone is speaking and everyone is breaking their own silence, everyone is telling their own story, and everyone is using their own voice.
And I think something that you all have that I'm from San Diego, I don't have. She's from Philly, she doesn't have. Oh, Brooklyn, sorry. She's a Brooklyn girl. You guys all have something that we don't have. You have the X factor that you live in San Francisco. I can tell you that I work with a lot of TV stations in San Francisco. They will only have local businesses and entrepreneurs because you have so many amazing people here. Unless you're an A-list person, like they're not going to have you on. But because you're from this area, they're going to have you on. And I think so many people want entrepreneur and ink, which is great. But times are changing too, and you can't necessarily have a backlink, and it's not necessarily going to help with SEO. So I'm a firm believer that you should prosper where you are, rise up quickly locally, and consider really being seen local because, we all have dreams of being on a national media outlet, but if someone were to Google and search your name, I would love for you to have some other features. Local TV, there's amazing public affairs shows that are dying to share your story and to highlight local women. I mean, yes, I'm so happy men are here, but they're dying to support positive people in the community. So I would highly encourage you to really allow yourself to prosper where you are.
And then Charlotte, you bring in another aspect, and after this I'll open up questions from the audience. You bring in an aspect, you've written 11 books, and several of those are for A-list people, celebrities. So how do books accentuate the full PR strategy? Because I think that's kind of a unknown or an underutilized aspect of how do you get your message out.
I think having a book really is a string to your bow because it's showing that you are an expert on your subject. And I think if you can think about with your venture, however big or small it is, writing some kind of book that's really going to strengthen your brand. It doesn't have to be very long. You could do anything from 20,000 words to 80,000 words, depending on what you have to say. But I certainly, for instance, like 2 weeks ago, I got a press release from someone who was a financial advisor and had written a book for millennials about how they can actually start to save when they're going through quite a difficult time. It's hard for them to get on the property ladder, and it's hard for them to put any money aside in this day and age. But she'd written that book, and for me that was great because it tied in with some research that kind of said that millennials are struggling and are having a harder time than perhaps other generations have had previously. So her sending me that press release, to me she was a great expert to interview, so I interviewed her and I managed to place that feature so she got publicity off the back of it. So books, I think, are really a great route for you to go, along with all the other approaches to PR. Press releases are essential. They're very easy to write once you know how to write them. You really need to utilise social media, use that to your full effect. Use Instagram, have your Facebook page. If you have that multi-pronged approach to your PR, then you're going to come across as authentic, and people are going to be interested in your brand.
All right, let's open it up to the audience. Do you guys have any questions for the panel today? It's over there. grab a mic, yeah. Sorry.
So my question is a little bit more on the technical side. I feel confident with my press releases and my pitches. And if a reporter reaches out to me, I also feel confident because they like what I have to say and they wanted to talk to me, so I'm good there too. Where I fumble and totally lose all confidence is picking up the phone and calling, or knowing when to pick up the phone or call after I send a really great pitch that I know that they should love, like the next step. So the more proactive versus reactive element of pitching a story. So I'm past the writing part, but just kind of lose all confidence. What happens next? So if you guys could talk about maybe some strategies or what you do, or when you know to actually call or when to leave it alone, or that piece of it, that would be really helpful.
Or Ashley, wait up.
Great question. In training, I've trained about over 1,000 people across the globe on this because it's something that particularly plagues women. We've been groomed to avoid tension and groomed to avoid tense situations. So when we send a pitch we put our heart and soul into and we hear crickets, we take it personally, and then we don't want to rock the boat, so we never follow up. And so what I tell people is the fortune's in the follow-up, and I've actually developed a script that works, I say 60% of the time, works every time, because it's short and sweet, and it is convicted and empowered. And I'll give it to you right now. It is dear name, following up here, ... any interest, ? That's it. And I've tested it across the board, and it's landed so many massive features, book distribution deals, everything. 6 words. And so it's part of a bundle that I'm happy to offer you. I know you were asking about pitch templates as well. They're my 5 top time-tested pitch templates. They work over and over and over on people if they've been featured or not featured. But the fortune's in the follow-up, and you have to wait about 24 to 72 hours if it's timely, so if it's newsjacking. If it's not, you want to wait a week, 7 days, and then you can follow up again in 7 days. And then if for any reason you don't hear back, assume that that pitch angle is not appropriate for the time, but you can continue to pitch over the coming weeks and months something else. Hope that helps.
Liz, I think you had an answer for that.
Specifically related to the telephone, we're all in our cell phones, but we're not putting them up to our ears, and so we've just culturally have gotten unused to talking on the phone. And so I would just say aversion therapy, make it a goal that every day you're going to make 10 phone calls. And those 10 phone calls don't actually have to just be to reporters, but just to people in your family, your friends. Like, get into the habit, like for 30 days, I'm going to make 10 phone calls. When you're going to make the phone call to the reporter, get into a room, close the door, put on a sticky note your main points, and do a bunch of power poses. Have you ever seen a power pose? Okay, this is a power pose. You just do a bunch of those and breathe for about 30 seconds, and then get on your call like you're totally pumped and you're stoked to talk to this person. And then do not get disappointed if they're harried or rushed or angry or sound whatever or sound disinterested. Reporters, I don't know how reporters do their jobs. They're getting 50 to 300 to 1,000 pitches a day. They're supposed to write. They're supposed to take briefings, right? So empathy for the reporter as you're having that conversation is really important. Don't take it personally. An example of a story that we landed today, it's not going to be written yet, it'll be written in a couple days, but one of the people on my team, she's been waking up at 5 in the morning every single day for the last week to call this reporter. Then he goes dark during the day, but she catches him at 5 in the morning our time because he's East Coast. Just persistence. And she landed the story today with TechCrunch. So, just don't be afraid, but do tricks to trick yourself out of the fear.
I would also say pay attention to the context. I mean, you have to understand, and we have some reporters, people who have been reporters on our team. So imagine like getting 900 stories thrown at you at once, right? You're one of many emails. And so how do you bring that email up to the forefront? Make it even more relevant than it was the last time you sent the email, right? And number 2 is do a little bit of research on who you sent the information about the reporter, what they write about. Well, if you're writing about women in tech, and a Google report just came out, well, what's your connection to that new report and the pitch that you sent 3 days ago? Do you have any more new information that can go now up to the top 3 messages that this person receives? So it requires a lot more, I think, focus. And sometimes, and I get on my team about this, which is we pitch a lot, but we pitch smart. We have to pitch smart. So if I know that I'm trying to get Jonathan Capehart, who's the editor of the Washington Post, to write about X, but CNN is flashing Y, well, then Jonathan is probably going to be focused on Y with MSNBC and Fox and everybody else. Well, what's the Y that I have to give to Jonathan now, right? How do I now pitch something else and say, hey, so use what Ashley said and use, I'm sorry, Liz, okay, use what Ashley said, which is, hey, I'm still here. By the way, X, Y, and Z is happening, and here's my new information on that. Strike your power pose at the same time, close the door, be quiet, and then say in your head, I got this, because I did my research, right? It's about context, time, and research.
I'd like to just add that always follow up, because I know like my inbox gets swamped, and sometimes I just literally have missed an email, and then someone will send me another one and say, I'm just following up on this, and I will then read the email, and quite often I will say, yeah, I like this. So don't be scared to follow up, always follow up. And it's very true about, the new angles. Google News is a great resource for looking at your subject area. Find what's been reported that day, what studies are out there, what reports, what can you tag your thing to. And there's always something. Just keep looking and keep on pitching. You'll strike gold in the end.
I think we have time for one more question from someone who hasn't asked, probably.
Hi. So I actually have my own PR agency, boutique agency, but it is. I've been doing PR for 10 years. I've always done it on my own. I've never worked for an agency or internally for other companies. And then starting a family, so that threw me off. So it's been about 2 years since I've kind of relaunched 100%. And so I'm an entrepreneur still. So what is your advice for someone that's starting their own PR agency, or kind of going through those first few years?
Don't do what I did, which was I didn't ask for enough advice on a regular basis in those first couple of years. So seek me out. I'm here. You'll find me. I'm happy to have lunch with you. There's lots of people that will. It was about 3 or 4 years before I met with Margaret Wenwalkers from Outcast. And then she gave me a bunch of advice that I agreed with and a bunch that I disagreed with, but that was really useful too, right? So to get perspectives from a bunch of other people, there's also a PR principals meeting that happens every quarter. I can get you invited to that. So there's lots of stuff like that. Find other PR agency owners and founders on Twitter and on LinkedIn and just reach out to them and say, hey, I'm doing this is my story. Will you help me? What's interesting is because we can't have 2 clients that are doing the exact same thing, so much of what we do, 90% of our inbound, we end up farming out to other agencies, just out of goodwill, not for money or anything. So be bold about asking for help. Also, make relationships with VCs. And don't just spray and pray emails to them, just pick one per month or every other month at different firms and reach out to them and say, hey, I would really like to pick your brain about your best interviewing skills for startup founders, or I would like to offer my free services teaching startups what PR is all about. Things like that. So I would say VCs and other agency owners.
I think Heather is in the midst of the startup right now. She's only a couple years in, so I think.
Yeah. Okay, so my biggest advice is make sure you're taking a salary. Just because this year, I'll be so raw. I'm blessed. This year, we will probably bring in 300,000, but I took the advice of the wrong people and literally probably spent 310 back in my business. Those are the raw mistakes you make as a young entrepreneur. I would also say really consider growing your team. You can't do it alone. It was the Heather show for so long, and by a higher power, God, everything's okay. Be graceful. Be willing to acknowledge when you messed up, but make sure you're taking a profit, even if it's just $1,000 or $2,000 a month. But also to really figure out who your ideal client is and don't bring people on just so you don't have to eat ramen noodles. I just think it's a journey of grace, and also I found that it's really humbling when you're because on social media like everything's great, and I like to keep a lot of my life private, but when you can come to a place and be raw and honest with like how is business, like that's why I love these kinds of opportunities, because we can be honest with each other and support each other with no judgment. But I mean, it's a journey, and like some of the online entrepreneurs, or not online entrepreneurs, but the people I look up to, the Sarah Blakeleys of the world, the Kara Goldens of Hints, I mean, they are older female entrepreneurs, and I'm like, okay, like, I'm not sure how old you are, but I mean, we're young, and they're getting closer to being 50, so I think we just need to cool it and breathe and realize that it's a journey.
Just one thing, which is, this was something I had to learn, which is living in your purpose and being really honest with yourself. So I tell people all the time, I've been in government policy and politics for 20 years. 20. And I'm not 40 yet. Sorry. Focus. So I've been 20 years. But I'm a new entrepreneur. I'm a new entrepreneur. And I tell people this all the time. So I can pick up a phone and call a lot of different powerful people in politics, government, and trying to be movers and shakers, but I'm a new entrepreneur. And so I surround myself with people who've been doing this for longer than me. And that's an honest, realization, right? Like, I can do X, but like, being an entrepreneur is different. I've been a boss before, right? I've managed many big teams and had big budgets and all that stuff, but being an entrepreneur is quite different. And so you need to surround yourself with people who've been doing it before, who have made some pitfalls, who are honest about those pitfalls, but also who are willing to share their bits of wisdom and gems. And I think that's the best thing I would, say to anyone who's interested in being an entrepreneur. Because for me, I was like, oh, so we do some work with Rock Nation and Jay-Z. And so a friend of mine was like, oh yeah, I just have this idea. I just want to get Jay-Z's number. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, his number is... And then my team said, what are you doing? Like, that's money. You need to put a value on that. I was like, oh yeah. That's what we doing now, all right. Right? Like, this makes sense, but that's your value, right? And so that's what you bring to the table. And so I had to surround myself with people who are like, listen, Desiree, you know lots of people, and you having access to these people, you're driven by purpose and all that good stuff, and that's great, but you still need to live and provide for your family. And so just surround yourself with the people who've been doing it longer than you.
Okay, so this is kind of a unique thing that I opened up to the community that wanted to do it, that have that passion, purpose, and maybe need a little bit of feedback on their pitch. So we're going to do a live pitch right now with Lezon. She's going to pitch our panel, so you get to witness it live. So thank you, Lezon, for being so courageous. So introducing.
That's me.
This clicker has been acting up a little bit. There we go. All right, so without any further ado, Lezon Seldon.
Hi everyone, my name is Lezon. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my pitch today. Keep it brief. So I am founder and executive director of Advocates for Rural Community Health, or ARCH for short. What we do is we provide quality healthcare services to rural regions on a global scale. Primarily, we address the human capital issue and also community outreach and education programs within healthcare. So I started this because I come from an entire family of physicians. My grandparents are surgeons, my parents are surgeons, very successful, immigrated to the US, and I rebelled against that, and I was like, I want nothing to do with medicine at all. Was very set on law, very set on politics, and then after college, kind of changed that, because I did Teach for America and had to teach science, never taken a science class in my entire life, so I had to learn everything from scratch. And then I found that I liked it, so I went and got my master's in diplomacy and military studies from Hawaii Pacific, still kind of holding on to politics and international relations, and ended up in Gula, Uganda, an area that's been plagued by a 20-year conflict that's been brought to light by Kony 2012 and Invisible Children, so that's kind of why I wanted to go there, to see what's happening post-conflict. Then I got hooked up with the World Health Organization, and I thought I landed my dream job. I was like, it's what I'm gonna do forever, research, report statistics, and really make an impact. After several reports, though, I found nothing was really being done. So I took the research and I started ARCH. So we primarily focus on Gulu, Uganda. So we do community outreach programs, which includes teaching hand washing to children, in elementary schools, providing soap. We also teach young women how to make reusable sanitary pads because they miss about a week of school. And on top of that, they also sometimes are seen sitting in a dirt hole during their menstrual cycle. And so that's also very unsanitary. So we do some of those things, and of course we send medical students there to actually help with the workload. So they basically manage the emergency room so that the specialists within the Uganda hospitals can go and actually see their specific patients.
So based on that pitch, kind of feedback for her, what she does, what she can do to improve.
My thing that when somebody is pitching something to me, and then imagine like if a VC would be, I would want to know what your ask is. So you're pitching, and then what is your ask of the particular audience or audience member? The other thing is your story is amazing. You can totally savor it as you're telling it. You know, it's juicy, it's good, it's world changing, it's amazing. So you can slow down and enjoy it.
I would also say humanize it as well, which is you described a story of the young woman who, or how young women sometimes have to sit over, which is just horrible. But, you know, humanize it, because one thing you want to do when you pitch is you want to grab people at their heart, right? Because that's what people pay attention to, and that's what they remember. They'll remember, oh my God, she told this story about, you know, a young lady named, you know, Linda, who had to sit down, and that's what they'll remember and take away. And then, you know, look in their eyes when you're telling that story too. And then I agree as well in terms of making the ask. Like, what's the ask? You want some money? You want some support? You want a trip? You want, you know what I mean? Like, be really clear, and you can say and number them. Well, the first thing I would like, and the second thing, and then finally, you know, and that way you're very clear about what that ask is.
For you, I think what would be really cool is, like, I love your story, but like, what's going on today? So like, if you maybe did some research to kind of lead with like the relevancy of it, and then also to like, is your intention to get featured and get media interviews for awareness? Is that like what you want to do? What I also would do too is like Women's International Day, or you know, use those awareness days as anchors and hooks to make your story relevant, because although this is super relevant in a world of so much noise, it only will be relevant to someone unless they really truly feel and understand it.
Yeah, I really agree about trying to tag it off like relevant days, you know, that are coming up, and really focus on the case studies you can get, the really emotive case studies, the pictures with the stories of these women that you're helping, because it's those kind of pictures that are going to work for you.
I love what you're doing, and I feel that your story would fall into a couple of categories for story formula types. And the one would be low to high, which is an unexpected beginning, and now you're creating this global transformation. So it all started when I was in Uganda, and I saw this girl, and then you give her a name. And my mission is to ensure that there are no more Lindas in the world. And now I'm working with 20,000 people in Uganda, and we're doing this. So it's this kind of low to high, which incidentally will be very relevant for all of you guys, because media loves that David and Goliath low to high arc, which we see everywhere, but until we crystallize in language, might not know that's what we're seeing. So low to high is key, and also positive and social good. Those are the two other ones. Positive is the heartwarming. Now Linda is living here, so kind of, you know, going back to what they're saying, but the unexpectedness of how you came into this, and then also I would add the exact data point. So turns out there are 5 million Lindas in the world, and we are actually affecting change to bring about the end of that, something like that.
Yeah, it's like when we were having our conversation. You mentioned like in rural Africa, the ratio is 1 to 10,000. One healthcare professional to 10,000 people. A lot of people forget rural area anywhere. So I think that's your unique value proposition. We're saying this is why we're doing it, because the rural community is kind of in that dark gap. And that's why I'm starting this. That's why I'm working to partner with all of the major medical schools in California to start, and then or to continue your outreach to medical programs.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Liaison. So when we first put this together, we had like 5 spots open to pitch, and I forgot how it's intense getting up in front of a bunch of people. It's like Shark Tank up here, so that takes a lot of courage. So I wanted to make sure it was a company or a group or an organization that has that global impact. I mean, she's already done the test run a couple times. She's doing the work, so it's overpowered to Liaison for doing that. I guess for our final question today is I always like to end things by looking ahead. So 2018, what are the platforms that people need to be on the lookout for? Because obviously you still have traditional media. It's still very powerful. It still gives you huge authority. But there's other things that are emerging right now that we in the industry are watching. So as a takeaway for the audience, as far as value for especially the entrepreneurs who have to do it themselves still, what formats and platforms should they be looking out for in 2018? Yeah.
So augmented reality and experiential marketing are going to be huge in 2018 and beyond. And augmented reality might feel like it's beyond the reach if you're just starting out, but you can start reading about experiential marketing and seeing what you can do from a guerrilla marketing and a scrappy perspective. The idea being creating experiences for your potential customers and your audience. And so augmented reality can fit into that, and if you've got the money to build a mobile app or build a larger experience, that's great. You might aspire to that. I mean, in 5 years you could totally do it, or in 2 years, or in 1 year. But read up on experiential marketing and see how you could apply it to your business.
Perfect. So there's a company that actually does those two things, experiential marketing, but also connects people to causes and movements and things that they're interested in. It's called Ampit. And so they recently received two Emmy nods. They focus primarily in music, and then it's a founder, Derek Ashan, who was handpicked by Oprah Winfrey a few years ago to be one of the youngest significant folks on the podcast in terms of expressing what the millennial generation is talking about in every single area, multiculturalism, policy, and some of the movements that have actually come out of us. I still think I'm a millennial. And so I would strongly, urge you guys to look it up, Ampit. They are going to be going into the civic engagement space for the first time come 2018. And so when we talk about these causes and these movements, right? And so, whether it's a Me Too movement, whether it's a Women in Tech movement, Women in Business movement, whether it is Women Are Fly movement, it really connects people, not more than just a hashtag. It creates a community of resources for them through this app. And so I think that's actually going to be a game changer for 2018.
How do you spell it?
I'm sorry, Ampit, AMP.IT. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Hello. Okay, so first and foremost, as she said, I really believe that as a millennial, I really feel, and we're in a huge awakening, like times are changing. And the millennial generation, we're going to be accumulating a lot of wealth from our parents and grandparents, but I really believe that you should consider having a for-good component of your company, or even giving a small amount back to something that you really care about, because I really believe that that's, where we're going, and I firmly believe in it. But also, I'm really excited. Months and months in the making, we're launching a PR software called Press Demand in the new year. And it's going to allow you, an expert, to use a PR software. You go to a website, and you'll be able to pitch the media in accordance with the logo. You'll write your pitch, my team will approve the pitch, and then the media's on the platform too. So no need to email anymore. And I created this because of the need to connect you with the media. I love approving pitches, and also like media gets hundreds and thousands of emails, so it's really simplifying the process for all. So really excited for it. We've been working with a team in Poland, and me stepping into the tech world, anyone who knows tech well, I have so much appreciation for you. You know, learning how to deal with developers is a whole separate game.
What was the name of that again?
It's called Press Demand.
The website?
Yeah, it'll be launching in January at pressdemand.com. And actually, if anyone wants to use it, I'll let you use it for free the first month.
I would say just utilize Insta stories as much as you can, because that seems to be a real growing medium. Loads of people are using it on Instagram now, so for your companies, you really need to get on that and be very comfortable with using that. And also, like, just video content. There's still, thankfully for me, you know, press is still out there, but you know, you do need to have like this multi-pronged approach to your campaign. So really utilize video as much as you can, as well as doing all the other traditional things that you would do.
So it's important to understand context before offering content, and it's important to understand the world we're moving into. So between now and 2020, we're going to see about 40-50% of workers become freelancers, displaced workers, freelance journalists who are writing for 10 different outlets instead of one staff position. And what that means for all of you guys is that as a freelancer or as a micro business, you have an opportunity between now and 2020 to learn the art of visibility. And I believe that in the world we live in today, the art of visibility is a new critical life skill, because if you think about it from a business perspective, how will they be able to tell? How will businesses looking for vendors, looking for B2B companies to work with, how will they be able to tell one credible business, one go-to option from another? And the key is going to be in how you position yourself, how you get the press placements, how you step forward as a thought leader, whether you're a solopreneur, a small business, or a business looking to scale to billions. So learning the skill set individually, I believe, is going to be the most important in terms of empowerment. Heather, that app is going to be a game changer. I've been saying for 3 years, 4 years, whoever creates that app is going to change the whole PR landscape. So that is going to be a game changer, but then also the skills. How do you create the brand that can grow with you through the years? Someone asked a question earlier on the other panel. How do you do that? You need to find 2 to 3 topic areas that you want to dominate that can grow with you as you grow. And nail those talking points, understand the story arc, understand how to do a media interview, all that stuff. So if you're interested in it, I'm happy to avail you of the Master of the Media Accelerator program that I have. It's a complete university. I bring in Forbes contributors, TED speakers, social media influencers to co-train with me. And then it's all the information that I know that you would be able to access, all the expertise of 7 years working and landing national press outlets. So for people who want local press or have never been featured before, it works. Just had students featured in Time, just had students featured as contributors at Thrive Global. But if you already have been featured, you can continue to expand as well. And I don't need to be the one pitching you. You're the one with the story. So I would definitely recommend, do the research, use the app, and I hope we all were able to serve you today.
Well, thank you very much. Fantastic value today. On that note about moving to the gig freelance economy, that's one of the neat things. Albert's List has been a huge, I don't know where Mabel is, but Albert's List has been a huge help for this event. And one of they're a job search site, but they have a ton of freelance opportunities. So one of the reasons we put this together Zynara, come on up here, was, you know, women now in this transition to 2020, you don't have to have some schmuck for a boss or a supervisor. You can do it yourself. You know, and that's the exciting thing. So that's why we thought that this would be maybe one of the best panels to start off our event series, because how do you share your story? If you don't have good marketing, if you don't have good PR or know how to do it, then you're just one out there in the void. But if we can help women tell their stories effectively, they can change the world, and the Bay Area can lead it. So thank you all very much. Zynara?
Thank you. I want to thank all of our speakers here today, and our speakers in the back here too, but all of you are so inspiring. Thank you for the tactical, practical advice on just really doing it. It just sounds like fear really stops us, and it's just about doing it and how to do that. So thank you all for sharing your stories. I thank you all for coming, taking the time to really spend this time with us. And like Jake said, we want to continue making more events like this really for you and how to really grow and share your story. So look out for a survey soon. We want to continue building this and find really the most effective way and making sure that we help you all. So thank you, and a few thank yous again to our sponsor, Baba, and DocuSign, of course, for hosting us in this lovely venue. And
Go Stand Productions with the live stream. If you need quality video work, I mean, it is one of the big PR things is good video, and people don't know how to do it. I'm astounded by the quality they do. So if you need quality video work, check them out. Easy people to deal with. So.
Absolutely. And we've left some time now until noon to network with each other. You're in a space here of entrepreneurs, of people part of amazing companies, and we have some panel members here. So please take the time to come up and ask questions and mingle and get to know each other. And thank you all.